One of the two questions came in from Misty Lee Myler, and she is one of our fantastic supporters. And Misty asked, can you help me to better understand repetitions? How do you know when enough is enough? How do you gauge repetitions personally as well as with your clients? So it leads me a little into exercise physiology, where there's a general rule of thumb, Misty, and that is that when we're focusing our work on strength gains and muscle mass gains, we typically do low repetitions with very high weight, and to the point of muscle failure, when you just cannot do anymore. And we want to reach muscle failure probably around between 6 and 12 repetitions. Some who are bodybuilders really working on weightlifting will even go lower to the point of 1 repetition. The most they can do in 1 repetition. Clearly that's not what we're working on. You've got the other side of the spectrum that are working towards endurance. And again, just as a rule of thumb, and this whole area is a little bit controversial today, but just as a rule of thumb, we work higher repetitions with low weight. And there we're working on muscular endurance. So those repetitions can be up to 30 repetitions. Often we do sets of repetitions. Really, Pilates is kind of in a category of its own. We typically base our repetitions on the number 10. Why did we choose 10? Goes back years and years and years. I cannot give you a categoric answer as to that. But 10 is what we typically do for most exercises, other than when we come to the very difficult exercises and the very complex exercises. Not necessarily difficult in terms of strength, some are, but difficult in terms of complexity. I'll give you an example of an exercise that isn't difficult in terms of muscular strength, like the mermaid. We can all do the mermaid. It is one of the hardest exercises to teach, because it has different parts and people choreograph their own little nuances, and suddenly it's going off on tangents. And seldom, if ever, I'm not going to say never, but seldom would you do 10 mermaids. It's a long exercise. We just don't do 10. It's very complex. Why? Because you start losing focus. And this is a mind-body system. You start losing focus. So we feel that 10 repetitions of most exercises, it's a good number to challenge you, to keep your focus. But Mr. Lee, we're not reaching muscle failure. You may feel enough is enough, and I love the way you use that phrase, enough is enough. Typically, enough is enough because just mentally, you've had enough with that exercise. We need to move on. And that's exactly it. We want quality, the same quality as you had for repetition number 1, we want on repetition number 10. If I get less quality on 10, that's too much. I want the same quality. So it's really more to do with mental focus than to do with muscle failure and strength gains and endurance gains. We're really straddling the fence between all. We are having strength gains, but not as much as if you are doing just pure strength training. We do have endurance gains, but not as much as if you were doing pure endurance. And then in a mat work, those who have done mat work with me, with our faculty, know that the style of BASI is geared towards endurance. So when you think of it, we're doing sets of abdominal exercise. We don't call them sets But if you do the double leg stretch, the single leg stretch, the crisscross, then you have a break with one other exercise, and then you go into the hamstring pull 1, hamstring pull 2, hamstring pull 3. Those are essentially, you did 6 sets of 10 repetitions. You just did 60. 6 sets of 10, yep, 60. And of an abdominal routine.